I stood at my son's wedding reception hall holding a folding chair, waiting for someone to tell me where to put it, because that's what I'd been doing all afternoon, carrying things, moving things, disappearing into whatever job nobody else wanted. My name is Walter Nash. I'm 64 years old, and it took me 3 months after that wedding to understand that my son had married into a family that saw him exactly the way I was being seen right then. Furniture. Useful furniture, but furniture all the same. 3 weeks ago, at my granddaughter's birthday party, I watched my son get down on his hands and knees on a stranger's driveway and scrub a chocolate cake stain out of concrete with a toothbrush, while 20 people watched and his father-in-law filmed it on his phone, laughing, saying, "This is what happens when you don't respect nice things." I didn't move for 11 seconds. I counted them afterward, lying awake at 3 in the morning. 11 seconds where I sat in my chair and did nothing while my boy scrubbed concrete on his knees. The next morning, going through a box of my late wife's things I hadn't touched in 2 years, I found a letter she'd written and never sent, and everything after that moved very fast. Tell me, before I go any further, where are you tuning in from tonight? A city, a state, wherever you're sitting right now. I read every one of these, and I promise you it matters more than you'd think. Also, quick note before we get into it. Some details in this story have been adjusted for privacy and narrative flow. The names aren't real, but what happened to my family, what almost happened that part, is true enough to matter. The coffee maker in my kitchen has a crack in the carafe that I keep meaning to replace and never do, because Doreen bought it at a Bed Bath & Beyond 11 years ago and something in me won't let it go. I'm a retired machinist, 38 years at a tool and die shop outside Toledo, Ohio, and my hands still remember the weight of a lathe, even though I haven't touched one in 4 years. Doreen passed 2 years ago, this coming October. Ovarian cancer, caught late, gone in 5 months. I still make 2 cups of coffee some mornings before I remember. My son's name is Aaron, 31 years old, an accountant, sharp with numbers the way his mother was sharp with people. 2 years ago, he married a woman named Brooke Calloway, and for those 2 years I watched him get quieter in a way I didn't have a name for. Not sad. Exactly. Smaller. Like a man folding himself down to fit through a door that kept getting narrower. I have a neighbor, Gus Halverson, retired postal worker. Lives 2 doors down, and he's been letting himself into my kitchen through the back door for 6 years, now the way some men do, once you cross a certain threshold of trust. He'd sit at my table most mornings, and about 4 months before the birthday party, he said something I didn't want to hear. "Aaron doesn't come around anymore, Walt. He's got a wife now, a house to run. He's got a wife who calls him 9 times if he's 10 minutes late leaving anywhere." Gus turned his mug in his hands. "You ever met her father?" I had. Once at the wedding, once at Thanksgiving the year before. Roland Calloway. Owned 3 car dealerships across 2 counties. The kind of man who'd built something real and never let anyone forget it. Big laugh. Bigger handshake. The sort of grip that lingers a half second too long, so you understand who decided when it ended. "He's a lot," I said, which was the kindest true thing I could manage. "That's one word for it," Gus said, and didn't say another word about it, because that was Gus's way. Say it once, then trust you to carry it. I should tell you about the birthday party, because that's really where this begins. It was for my granddaughter, Nora, turning 5. Roland hosted it at his place, always at his place, because Roland's place was bigger, nicer, had a pool with a slide, and Aaron and Brooke's small rental house never seemed adequate for the occasion once Roland got involved. I drove the 40 minutes out to Sylvania in my truck, wearing the good shirt, the navy one Doreen always said brought out my eyes, though I'd never once believed her about that. Aaron was already working before I'd parked, setting up tables, hauling coolers of ice, running extension cords for the bounce house Roland had rented, all while wearing a collared shirt that was soaked through by the time I walked up the driveway. He hugged me quick, said, "Glad you made it, Dad," in a voice that had a flatness to it I didn't like, and went right back to work. I found a chair near the edge of the patio where I could watch things. That's become my role at these gatherings. I've noticed the man in the folding chair who watches. Roland held court near the bar cart he'd set up, a beer in hand by 11 in the morning, laughing loud with 2 other men in golf shirts. And every 15 minutes or so, he'd call out something to Aaron. "Aaron, more ice. Aaron, the speaker's cutting out. Go check it. Aaron, Tell the caterer he's got the wrong tablecloths. My daughter wanted burgundy, not maroon. Small things, constant things, the kind of steady drip that wears a groove into a man before anybody notices the groove is there. Brooke drifted between clusters of women with a mimosa, phone in her other hand, and didn't once look toward the patio where her husband was running cords through the grass in 90-degree heat. My granddaughter found me around noon, the way she always did, aiming herself at my lap like a small comet. Nora, 5 years old, all elbows and certainty. Grandpa Walt, I got a bike, a pink one. Daddy's gonna teach me to ride it. That's so, Bug. Uh-huh. Grandpa Roland got it for me, but Daddy's the one who's gonna teach me, 'cause Daddy's good at teaching things. She said this with total confidence, the way 5-year-olds say anything, unaware of the small mercy she'd just handed her father without knowing it. Then Brooke's voice cut across the yard. Nora, come here, sweetheart. Grandpa Roland wants a picture. Not unkind, just absent. The tone you'd use on a stranger's child you were being polite to. Nora climbed down and trotted off, and I watched Brooke pose her for photos without once glancing toward the grill where Aaron was flipping burgers alone, sweat darkening his shirt down the spine. An older woman settled into the empty chair beside mine, carrying a plate of potato salad she'd clearly made herself. You're Aaron's father, she said. Not a question. Walter Nash. Carol Jean Whitfield. I live across the street. I've been to every one of Roland's parties for 9 years because it'd be rude not to go. She paused, looking out at the yard. I don't particularly look forward to them anymore, if I'm honest. I didn't answer, but I was listening. Your son's a good worker, she said. He's been at that grill since 10 this morning setting up. Roland had a whole catering company booked. Canceled them Thursday. Said it'd feel more like family this way. She looked at me sideways. Family being a word Roland uses when it costs him nothing and helps him plenty. Around 1 o'clock, the thing happened that split the afternoon in two. Nora had been carrying her birthday cake, a small personal slice on a paper plate, nothing dramatic, across the patio toward the picnic table, and she tripped over a cooler cord Aaron had run for the speakers. The cake went down, chocolate frosting smearing across 4 feet of Roland's driveway pavers. The good ones. The imported ones Roland mentioned at every gathering, like a scripture verse. Nora started crying, more startled than hurt, and Aaron was there in 2 seconds, scooping her up, checking her knees, and that's when Roland came around the side of the bounce house and saw the stain. Whose cord was that? Roland said. Not loud yet, just cold. Mine, Aaron said. It's my fault. I ran it there. I'll clean it. You're damn right you'll clean it. Roland's voice climbed. 20-some people went quiet the way a yard does when something serious starts. Not gradually, all at once. Do you know what those pavers cost? $60 a square foot, imported. And you've got frosting ground into them because you couldn't be bothered to run a cord somewhere sensible. I'll get it up right now. Get down there and get it up right. On your knees. I want to see you actually working at it, not some half-effort swipe with a paper towel. Roland's jaw was tight, performing now for the men near the bar cart who'd drifted closer. Get a toothbrush from the garage, second drawer, and get down there and scrub it like you mean it. Aaron's face went through something complicated, shame, then a kind of resigned calculation, and he looked toward Brooke. I watched him do it. Watched him search her face for one word, one step forward, anything. Brooke stood near the pool with her arms crossed, looking somewhere just past her husband's shoulder, her expression the particular blank of a woman who has already decided not to see something. Aaron got the toothbrush. He got down on his knees, on the hot pavers, in front of 20 people, and scrubbed at a chocolate stain, while Roland stood over him with his phone out, recording, narrating for the men behind him. This is what happens when you don't respect nice things. This is a lesson, gentlemen. Somebody laughed. Not cruelly exactly. Just the automatic laugh men give when the man holding power over the room wants one. I was 11 feet away. I counted it later, walking the distance myself, once everyone had drifted back into their conversations, and the yard had swallowed the whole thing like it never happened. 11 feet, and 38 years of hands that had straightened rebar and pulled men out of collapsed conveyor lines and knew exactly how to be useful in an emergency. And I sat in that folding chair with my hands flat on my thighs, and I did not move. I looked at Aaron's face once, just once, while he was down there, and I understood why. It wasn't a plea for help. It was the opposite. Please, Dad, don't make it worse. Not here. And so I stayed still. And it was one of the hardest things I've done since I sat in a hospital room and watched a monitor flatten out under my wife's name. Carol Jean pressed a cold glass of lemonade into my hand without a word. I didn't drink it. Aaron finished, stood up, knees stained, hands stained, carried the toothbrush back to the garage, and came back out and picked up the spatula like nothing had happened, because that's what he'd learned to do, absorb it and keep moving. Roland turned back to his friends. Someone laughed at something unrelated. The party started up again like a machine restarting. I found Aaron near the cooler an hour later. Put my hand on his shoulder. I'm gonna head out. Early morning tomorrow, I told him, which wasn't entirely true, but I needed him to hear something before I left. This isn't on you. Not a single piece of it. He nodded, quick, the way a man nods when he doesn't trust his voice. Thanks for coming, Dad. I found Roland by the bar cart on my way out. Thank you for having me, I said, close enough that only he could hear the next part clearly. We'll be in touch, Roland. Something in my tone made his smile flicker, just for a half second. The look of a man who's heard a sentence he can't quite file away. Then the smile came back full and easy. Anytime, Walt. Drive safe. I sat in my truck in his driveway with the engine off for a long time before I could make myself turn the key. I didn't sleep that night. Around 5 in the morning, I gave up trying and went to the closet, because I'd been putting something off for 2 years, and something about watching my son on his knees made the putting off feel unforgivable. Doreen's box had been on the top shelf since the week after her funeral. I'd carried it up there myself because I needed something to do with my hands that wasn't shaking, and I'd told myself I'd go through it when I was ready. I still wasn't ready. I climbed up for it anyway. The smell hit me before anything else, her hand lotion, the paperback mystery novels she never returned to the library on time, something underneath that had no name except that it was entirely her. On top, a paperback with a bookmark stuck at page 180 she never finished. Underneath, her reading glasses, a rosary she'd carried since her mother passed, a photograph of the 3 of us at Cedar Point, the summer Aaron turned 14, all of us laughing at something I no longer remembered. Near the bottom, tucked in a folder with old greeting cards, I found an envelope, Aaron's name on the front, in Doreen's careful cursive, the kind she used when something mattered, unsealed. I sat there a long time before I opened it. The date at the top was 8 months before she passed, during a stretch when the chemo had given her back some good mornings. Aaron, I don't know if I'll ever give you this. I need to write it down anyway because I'm running out of good days to say it out loud. You are the best thing your father and I ever built. Not because of your job or your grades, because of who you are when nobody's watching, the way you carried your cousin's groceries up 3 flights without being asked, the way you check on your dad even when you're the one who needs checking on. I'm worried about you and Brooke's family. I can't explain it cleanly. It isn't the money. It's the way Roland looks at you, like you're a tool he hasn't finished using yet. I want to be wrong. I am trying so hard to be wrong. But something tells me you're going to be asked to make yourself smaller and smaller until you can't remember your real size. Please don't let that happen. Your father doesn't say much, but he has never once in his life walked away from something worth protecting. When it gets hard, let him help you. You're more alike than either of you will ever say out loud. I love you further than this page can hold. Mom. My face was wet before I noticed it had started. I sat on the edge of our bed with that letter in my hands, and I thought about every dinner where Doreen had gone quiet after Roland made some comment about Aaron's salary, and I'd told myself she was just tired from treatment. Tucked in the back of her old planner, I found a slip of paper with a name, a lawyer, Denise Okafor, and 3 words underneath in Doreen's handwriting. House. Keep safe. I called that morning. Denise Okafor's office was on the 2nd floor of an old brick building downtown. No receptionist, just a wooden bench and a door with her name on brass. She opened it before I knocked. Mr. Nash, you sound like a man who needed to come in today. I told her everything. Flat. In sequence. The way you give a report at a job site. The cake. Roland's voice. Aaron on his knees. Brooke looking away. When I finished, she opened a drawer and pulled out a folder the same beige as the paperwork from Doreen's estate 2 years back. Your wife came to see me, she said, 14 months before she passed, under her maiden name so there'd be no confusion with existing files. My hands went still on the armrests. She had two questions. First, whether a daughter-in-law could ever gain a legal claim on your home if your son's name ever got added to the deed. Denise looked at me over her glasses. She wanted to be certain your name alone stayed on that title. It is, I flagged the file. And the second question? Whether it was possible someone could be deliberately building a relationship with her son to get access to what your family had built. Denise closed the folder. I told her it was possible, and I'd need more information. She said she'd come back when she had it. A pause. She never came back. The room went quiet except for traffic outside. Your property, Denise said carefully, was reassessed last year, higher than the neighborhood average, given the shop equipment and the workshop addition you built yourself. Roland Calloway sits on the county zoning board through his dealership associations. He'd have access to valuation records that aren't public. He'd know what it's worth, I said. I believe he's known for some time. I told her about the joint checking account Aaron and I had opened years back for emergencies, and Denise told me to check it that night, see whose names were actually on it. And Mr. Nash, she said as I stood to leave, I want you to bring your son in. He needs to know what's happening, whether he's ready or not. Aaron came the following evening, sat in his usual chair like he'd done since he was a boy waiting on dinner, and I laid it out for him the way I'd laid it out for Denise Doreen's letter, the lawyer's visit, the property records, all of it. His face moved through disbelief, then a grief so clean it hurt to watch. She saw this coming, he said. Before I even married her. She did. He was quiet a long moment. There's something I haven't told you, he finally said. Brooke told me 2 months ago she was pregnant, but she hasn't mentioned a single doctor's appointment. When I called her OB's office last week to ask about scheduling, they have no record of her as a patient. The kitchen went very still. I called Denise the second I checked our joint account that night. I told him, there's a name on it that isn't yours or mine. Brooks, added 4 months ago. Nobody told either of us. We sat with that. Aaron finally said quietly, she's been talking to her dad about our finances the whole time, hasn't she? I think so. He came back 3 days later with a folded printout, a copy of my property assessment, with handwritten notes in the margin, in a hand that wasn't his. Spring timeline. B to soften A. Split, after sale. He'd found it in a drawer in his own bedroom. I looked at that note a long time. What I felt wasn't rage. It was something colder, more settled. A picture finally coming into focus after months of squinting at something blurred. We brought it all to Denise. She listened, read the note twice, and set it down. This is a documented pattern now, she said. An unauthorized account addition. A property valuation with handwritten intent to influence a sale. A fabricated pregnancy used to keep your son compliant while things got arranged behind his back. She looked between us. We're not building a criminal case. What we're building is leverage. We send a letter. No threats, no demands. We simply let Roland understand that continuing costs him considerably more than stopping does. I wrote 4 sentences myself, in my own hand, to go in that envelope alongside the documentation. Mr. Calloway, I built everything I own with these 2 hands, and I know exactly what it's worth. I want my son and my granddaughter left in peace. I believe you understand what I'm telling you. The letter went out certified mail on a Tuesday. Aaron told me that evening that Brooke had come home, seen the return receipt notice, and asked him flatly if he wanted her gone. He told her he needed a few days to think. They barely spoke after that. 9 days later, on a Friday, Aaron texted me one line. Brooke's moving to her sister's. You are. Nora stays with me. I read that standing at my kitchen counter and felt something loosen in my chest that had been wound tight since the birthday party. The following Monday, a car I didn't recognize pulled into my driveway too carefully, and I came around front before whoever it was reached my door. Roland Calloway, alone. No golf shirt friends, no dealership truck with his name on the door. Just a man in a plain button-down who looked, standing on my front walk without an audience, considerably smaller than he had at his own party. Walter, he said. Roland. I stepped back from the doorway. Come in. He sat at my kitchen table, the same table Doreen and I had eaten every dinner at for 30 years, and I poured 2 cups of coffee without asking how he took it. I read the letter, he said. I assumed you had. His hands were flat on the table. the hands of a man trying to look at ease and not quite managing it. What do you want? I want my son left alone. Him and my granddaughter. No calls, no pressure, no opinions about decisions that aren't yours to make. He turned his mug in a slow circle, reached into his shirt pocket, and slid 2 folded documents across the table. A notarized release removing Brooke's name from the joint account. A signed statement relinquishing any claim, present or future, to my property. Brooke didn't have it easy growing up, he said quietly, not quite looking at me. That's on me, I know that. I can't tell you whether your daughter's a good person, Roland, I said. What I know is that my son loved her honestly, and she let him do it while helping herself to whatever she could reach along the way. What you do with that is your business now, not mine. He nodded once, the nod of a man accepting a verdict he already knew was coming, stood, looked around my kitchen at the cabinets I'd built with my own hands over one long winter, at Doreen's photograph on the windowsill and said, "You built all this yourself, every bit of it." He let himself out. I heard his car pull away and blend into the ordinary sounds of the street until it was gone. 6 months later, it was a clear Saturday morning in April, that particular pale gold light Ohio gets before summer really commits to itself. I was at the stove when I heard Aaron's truck in the driveway, eggs in Doreen's cast-iron pan, bacon thick cut from the butcher on 5th, coffee already made. The divorce had gone through quietly. Brooke signed what the settlement offered without much fight, same as everyone predicted. About a month after she moved out, Nora asked her father if her mother was coming back, and Aaron told me later how he'd sat down on the kitchen floor right where he stood and held her, and told her that her mother loved her. And some things change, but that never would. Nora had listened carefully, then asked for a grilled cheese. He made her one. I've thought about that 100 times since the specific, ordinary resilience of a 5-year-old holding sadness in one hand and a sandwich in the other. Nora came through my back door first, full speed, the way she always did. "Grandpa Walt, it smells so good in here." "Bacon does that, Bug. Go wash your hands." "They're clean. Go wash them anyway." Aaron came in behind her, and he looked good, not the performed fine I'd watched him carry for months, but actually good. Color back in his face, shoulders loose, moving through my kitchen like a man who finally knew exactly where he stood in it. "I've been thinking," he said, over coffee, once Nora had taken her crayons to the living room, "about finding a place closer to you. Not because we need looking after, because Nora should grow up knowing her grandfather. Mornings like this should happen more than they don't." My throat tightened. "That sounds exactly right," I said. I got up and went to the drawer where I'd kept it since the morning I found it, the envelope, his name on the front in his mother's handwriting. I set it in front of him. "This is from your mom," I said. "She wrote it before she passed. I've been holding on to it. I think it's time." He held it a long moment without opening it. "I'm going to read this tonight," he said, "after Nora's asleep. It's yours whenever you're ready." From the living room, Nora held up a drawing with both hands, our backyard, the old oak tree, and beneath it 2 figures on a bench, one small, one taller, with long dark hair. "Who's that second one, Bug?" "That's Grandma Doreen." She said it like it was obvious. "Daddy says she's still with you, so I put her in the picture." I carried that drawing to the mantel and set it beside Doreen's photograph, one in silver frame, one in crayon, both looking into the same room. I am not a man who hands out advice easily. 38 years of working with my hands taught me that most things don't get fixed with words. They get fixed with patience and the willingness to stay in the room when everything in you wants to walk out of it. But if this taught me anything, it's this: don't sit 11 feet away from the truth and call it protecting someone. The people who love you don't need your silence. They need you steady, and they need you there. I looked at what happened to my son, and I saw my own failure sitting right next to Roland Calloway's cruelty. A father who noticed something was wrong for 2 years and talked himself out of trusting it. Doreen trusted it. She always did. And she left me every tool I needed before she ever left this world. I just had to be willing to climb up and get the box down. If you've ever sat at your own kitchen table at 2 in the morning wondering whether you said enough, whether you showed up enough for the people counting on you, tell me about it below. Tell me where you're watching from tonight, and tell me your story if you've got one to tell. And if this one found you, pass it along to somebody who's still carrying a story like this. they haven't found the words for yet. Thank you for staying with me to the end of this one. Until next time.